the trouble yesterday, but here we are, new day, new program. Now then, with the vaccination, and we have with us the President of the Sri Lanka Medical Association, Dr. Padma Gunaratne, who is also a consultant neurologist. Very good evening to you, Doctor, and welcome on Newsline Live.
Good evening, Faraz.
Thank you. Now then, I thought we'd ask you several questions connected with the rollout of the vaccines. But before that, what of the variants? What difference has this new variant that we've discovered, the world's discovered? We have a UK variant and a South African variant and maybe a Brazilian variant. So what impact has that had on our vaccination program?
When we talk on viruses, while they divide, anyway, naturally, they undergo mutations.
Right.
Some of these mutations are is somewhat healthier for the virus, and then they would thrive on them, whereas for others, it would not be that much conducive for the virus, so that anyway would disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So the viruses that would develop, the mutations that would be conducive for the virus are the ones that we see as variants. So it's a natural process that we anyway would see with viruses.
Right.
So that is how even the COVID appeared, because it's totally a new virus, and that we did not know before. But then in 2019, December in Wuhan, it appeared as a new virus.
Right.
So now, if we talk on variants, that there are many variants that have been recognized, but out of them, the attention at the moment are, in Sri Lanka, we have mainly what we see is the Sri Lankan lineage that we has been having for a long, from the initial stages from September 2020 of the outbreak. Then it is only recently that we got Sri Lanka, this UK variant, and in about 4 different places.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we know that there is a South African variant, there's this Brazilian variant, and then they talk on another USA variant as well. So the problem with the variants is that they do transfer the disease. The transmissibility of the infection is very much more when you develop the disease with variants.
Right.
It does not cause more severe illness, but it's with more transmissibility, so that there will be more and more patients. If you get one patient, then from that patient there will be more and more cases that would appear when the patient is infected with the, say, even UK variant.
Right.
So when you get more cases, then it's compulsory that you would end up more hospital admissions, and then more complications, more ICU admissions, and then it may end up with more deaths as well.
Right.
So that's why it's important for us to pay attention and to see that what variant that we have. That's why the labs have to check what variants are there, and then what's the consequences of these variants.
Sorry, go on.
So as of now, the vaccine that we have is the Covishield vaccine.
Right.
So this vaccine that we have is effective enough against our Sri Lankan variant as well as for UK variant.
Right.
So that's why it becomes important for us to roll out our vaccine program and to expedite it as early as possible before we develop, or the variants, maybe that it may develop within the country, or we might import them. Either could happen.
And it could then impact our whole program.
So you may get new types of infection. So before that happens, it's important that we control it with the mass scale vaccination.
So what you're saying really is that time is of the essence.
That's right, exactly.
And as the Sri Lanka Medical Association, what's the information down the grapevine? Is our government confident that we're getting this other thing on time? Because if we don't, we are all doomed.
As you say, yes, there is a problem. It is not anything specific to Sri Lanka.
No.
It's a global issue.
Yeah.
and it is an issue that is being battled by the World Health Organization mainly because the rich countries already have stocked about 80% of the vaccines. It's more than enough for their entire population, and it's the poor countries that are deprived of vaccinations.
I'm starting to get annoyed with the rich countries because they stand on their high ground and they lecture us on the need for accountability, reconciliation, unity, human rights and all these rights, but they are depriving us of the human rights when they stockpile.
Yes.
Because actually it doesn't help, because surely you need the entire world to be vaccinated, because otherwise if there's a group of people who are not vaccinated, well, they may just come and carry it all over to the people who are vaccinated, and so this never-ending cycle.
Yes, exactly. That's why the COVAX program has been established to promote the development of vaccine, the newer vaccines, to develop science, and then to promote manufacturing, and as well as to distribute in a fair and equitable manner. So it is from the COVAX program that we would be getting about the vaccines that would be adequate for about 27% of our population.
And do you know, Doctor, from personal knowledge or professional knowledge, do you know if there are any Sri Lankan companies who are actually trying at least to develop a vaccine of our own?
Not to my knowledge, I'm sorry, no.
Okay, I think we need to get the Professor Asita, is it, in charge of the NMRA?
Probably, yes. In case of NMRA, generally they register the ones that have been proven to be effective.
Right.
But then for development of vaccines, I do not know whether NMRA has any role to play.
Now then, when I got mine, I was listening in on the conversations of different people, all in the line, and congregated there. Is there a special diet, either pre-getting vaccinated or post-vaccination? Because that was, a lot of people were discussing that. What's the real story there?
The vaccine that is available is with there are hardly any contraindications for vaccines other than very severe allergy, what we described as anaphylaxis. I mean, if we have the history of anaphylaxis, then one should not get it. And then if you are with a serious illness such as bleeding, hemophilia sort of a thing, where when you get the injection, if you bleed into the muscle, then one may not get it. But if otherwise, all the other conditions are somewhat relative, I mean, contraindications, and it's more about 99% become eligible for vaccination. So that has nothing to do with the diet. But then I must tell you that along with COVID outbreak, it has been shown that there is an exponential rise of cardiovascular diseases, what we described as non-communicable diseases. It may be because of the diet, it may be because that people were not, have stopped their exercise, outings and so on. Therefore, there had been escalation of the heart attacks and the other cardiovascular diseases. So based on that, I think that it's very reasonable for us to advise on diet while we give COVID vaccination. I mean, a healthy diet. What do we mean by healthy diet? Is that, the amount of calorie intake based on your height and weight, and then to take more salad, green leaves, fruits and fish, and then to cut down red meat, deep fried beef, pork and so on.
What about the standard doctor's rubber stamp? No alcohol, no tobacco. What about that?
Yeah, again, tobacco is something very important in relation to COVID, because even in Sri Lanka, we saw that many people who developed COVID were smokers, isn't it? So the smokers don't do all right with COVID, because with long-term smoking, your organ that is affected is lungs.
Right.
So and even with COVID, you develop a pneumonia. So for the smokers, COVID is not anything good. So I think that this may be the time altogether for people who smoke to refrain from smoking. The best.
Just to at least out of an abundance of caution.
Yes.
All right. There were many questions. Thank you very much. By SMS, please, to 0772 300 305. If I want to get vaccinated, what steps do I need to follow?
The government, when the government started rolling out the vaccination program, we had an agreed plan, but then it was all of a sudden changed, and the government focused on more the pockets that are with high caseloads, so that at the moment, actually it's difficult for us to give one direct answer that would suit for all.
Right.
So it would depend on where he resides and when the government is planning to vaccinate the place wherever the person is.
Yes. Now, like for today, for example, the newspapers had details of where people from Colombo could get it done.
That's right.
And
so in Colombo, I think that there were 7 places today, according to newspapers.
Right.
So one will have to find out the place, based on that where he is living.
Indeed. New variants keep springing up. Will the vaccines become outdated?
There are many things that are not known in this COVID because it's a new infection. This is not the first virus infection. We know that when we have influenza every year, because that they go on changing, the vaccination go on changing. So as at present, the vaccination that we have is effective for the variants that are available, that circulate among us. But you'd never know, it may happen. So when it happens, there might become a need for people to develop newer vaccines to suit the newer variants.
And just ahead of the break, can you tell us what are the side effects
of vaccination?
Yes.
The vaccination what we have is with minimum side effects. There aren't.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? Let's go for a break and see what the headlines are for the primetime news. We'll be back in just about a minute. We'll see you on the other side of Newsline Live.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly. Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And welcome back to Newsline Live, and we're delighted to tell you that we are being watched live from viewers in the United States. We have questions from people living in Texas or coming from Texas anyway, from the United Kingdom, and also from France, and presumably in Sri Lanka, wonderful Sri Lanka. Now that we were talking about the effects, the side effects or the after effects of the vaccine.
Now this particular vaccine that we are using, the Covishield, is with very minimum side effects. There aren't reported death as a side effect, but the person once following the injection may get little itching at the site of the injection. They might get a little redness, mild swelling, pain in that region, and then could be followed by, over the next 48 hours, fever, high fever, aches and pains, headache, and say if they are sort of with little severe side effects, may develop abdominal pain and lymph nodes of the body.
And in the case of high fever, what do you do? Take Panadol?
That's right, yes.
Right.
So in case of high fever, it's important that we keep ourselves well hydrated. You need to drink a lot, and then take 2 tablets of Panadol, and then rest. What is most important for fever is rest.
Rest, right. Okay. And one other question about that is the minimum period between the first and the second vaccination is said to be about 12 weeks.
Yes.
Is there a maximum period? At what point does it taper off?
Scientifically, there are many things that are not known. As the vaccine was released, and I mean at the time that it was brought in, we thought that if we get the second jab in 4 to 6 weeks, that we get the maximum immunity. Whereas when they analyzed the rest of the data of double-blind control studies, about another 4 research studies, they realized that, say, if the second injection is in 12 weeks, then the immunogenicity is much better than when you get the injection in 6 weeks.
Right.
So that's what we know, right? There are many things that we do not know.
Right.
Right. So we could say that if you take it in about 10 to 12 weeks, then you would get better, I mean, good immunoresponse than when you get it for the following the 6 weeks.
Yes.
But we just do not know what would happen much later.
We'll, my card says in 10 weeks' time, and so on. So that's Sri Lanka was recognized by the WHO last year for successfully eliminating malaria and rubella. Are there lessons we can learn from these people, from these, to fight COVID?
Malaria is a parasitic illness and is transmitted through a vector. It's in a different way, so that you need to deal with malaria differently.
Right.
Whereas here is a respiratory tract infection, and it's a viral infection with very high transmissibility. So that what is important for people to understand is, many of us, we tend to think that, all right, once we get the vaccination, we could throw away the mask and just could enjoy and could return back to the usual normal life that we used to enjoy in the past.
But it is actually quite different, and I hope you tell the public that.
It's totally different. I mean, what we need to emphasize is that despite that you get the vaccine, it's very important that you continue to adhere to the same public health measures that were announced by the Ministry of Health again and again over last 1 year.
Which is hands,
hand washing,
face
mask,
and the distance,
and avoid crowded places, as well as that if you have a respiratory tract infection, avoid getting back to your office.
I must say that in the reports that I have from people who were at Hyde Park today, and also from where I got it, that there wasn't any social distancing. I must admit to that.
That's right, yes.
Whilst it was very professional in all other counts,
yes.
And they had plenty of staff to help with the, to fill the forms and so on. The one thing, if I had to be critical, would be the fact that the social distancing was simply not there.
Yeah, it's a good point that you took it up. I mean, if we think of that, whose responsibility? I mean, aren't people responsible?
Yes, that's true. It would be rather irresponsible to go and stand next to
That's right, that's right. So it would have been just a queue, maintaining the distance.
Indeed. After all, we now know about all
that's
these.
Right, that's right.
And for all those who are trying to telephone us, you can't get through. You must send us SMSs if you want your questions taken up. Now then, the other question to ask you is, of course, what about people with underlying health problems, maybe kidney or renal problems, diabetes, cardiac problems, heart, and so on? Should they not take the vaccine? Should they take the vaccine?
Yeah, that's an important question, because now if you think of why we need to vaccinate people, is because that the purpose of vaccination is mainly to bring down deaths, to bring down the people with symptoms, and to reduce the incidence of complications, hospital admissions, and ICU occupancy. So in that regard, I mean, it has been shown that the higher the age, say if you are more than over 80, your death rate is about 15%, whereas if you are about over 70, the death rate may be about 4% following the COVID infection. So all these people, they become more vulnerable for the higher mortality is because that they are with these what we call comorbidities. What are comorbidities? Diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancers, kidney disease, respiratory tract illnesses. They all are sort of long-standing diseases that affect their systems. So these are the people that who find more difficult to go through and they tolerate and who succumb to the infection, and actually it's them, I mean these people that who deserve the injection vaccination most. So they actually need to, I mean we should persuade them and pressurize them, and they should get the vaccination.
Now then, this is an interesting one. Now that we have all these other variants coming in, and it looks to be a little bit serious now, doesn't it? More serious than the first one, which was serious anyway. Therefore, do you believe that we need to start wearing 2 masks?
The science on 2 masks, I mean, I think that we need to stratify the risk of individuals. I mean, there are ones that who are confined to home, there are ones that who are working in a sort of a very less number, is not in crowded places, whereas there are others who are health workers that who would get exposed every now and then for people. So now there is no evidence of benefits of wearing 2 surgical masks, because they are not meant for you to wear 2 masks. Whereas if you think that you are exposed to a higher risk of getting infection, then you could wear a cloth mask and a surgical mask.
I see.
But you should not wear 2 surgical masks.
I see. Thank you for that. And currently, with Sri Lanka's laws and so on, and this is an important question, is it compulsory to have the injection? That I'm delighted to say that question's come all the way from Gaul. So, is it compulsory to have the injection?
Now, there are a lot of ethics with regard to medicine, as well as there are ethics in COVID as well. So, there's nothing, I mean, there's no one to pressurize to sort of make it compulsory and to force people to get the injection. I mean, it is by educating people of benefits of vaccination that we would promote vaccination. So it's not compulsory. So one has to understand the benefits of vaccination and then has to be motivated.
As a professional doctor, would you, as a professional person, would you espouse a cause of a new law that would force everyone to have the vaccination?
No, there's no need. I mean, the ethics in medicine are so clear that one needs to have the right to decide on oneself.
But what about if you are going to be placing everybody else at risk because you haven't had it?
There are many things that, I mean, we know that say if about 60% of people are with immunity, I mean, then we know that even all the others also are protected, because that we have something called herd immunity.
Right.
So it's not on one single individual that we would depend on,
right,
but it's on sort of the majority.
It says here, somebody is over 85 and is horrified having the jab. Personal choice, down to personal choice?
I feel that I mean, even at 85, there are ones with very good sense, and at the same time, there are others that who are with dementia, and that who would not be able to decide on themselves. So in that type of a situation, either the patient or the caregiver has to decide on vaccination based on the risk. I mean, ideally, she needs it.
Dr. Padma Gunaratne, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live. It's been wonderfully informative. And of course, Sri Lanka doesn't, our constitution doesn't provide for for two sets of people or different classes of people. There's only one class. And as Dr. Gunaratne has just told us, whether you are having the vaccine or not is entirely down to you, and it's your responsibility. And we look forward to have our next program tomorrow. In the meantime, it's now time for the primetime news from News First. Take care, great evening, and as always, God bless you.